Hi, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Livia, and today I'm going to talk about my second awakening, which includes divorce, miscarriage, alcoholism, abuse, and me hitting rock bottom. So, if you're ready for this journey, come along, and it's not going to be a happy journey. So, bring your tissues. If for some odd reason you like this video or you liked my vulnerability or my openness, please give it a like. If you think this message will help somebody else, although it's just my story, please send it to somebody else. And if you had a story that it's similar, I'm with you. Please comment below. Let me know what was your story. If you have any questions or if I can be of any support to you, let me know in the comments below and subscribe because there's a lot more coming. There's a lot more coming. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Hi. Happy Monday or happy something. Here I am looking fabulous because I am about to talk about some really, really heavy subjects about my life. So last week, I was really inspired to talk about my father's death. Hello, everybody. And I got a really good response from everybody about my tragic story. I never thought it would have a meaning to anybody else. So I'm just very excited in a way that this story was meaningful for people, was it somehow touched people's hearts. And I'm very humbled by that because when you're going through your stories in life, you don't really think they're going to be of any value to anybody. You're just thinking, oh, shoot, here I am going through life and suffering. And it's great to know if if the story, if the mess can become a message and it can become a point of power, better, better, because then it makes it worth to go through life, through all these situations in life. And because I shared my divorce story, the death of my father story, which was my first awakening last week, and I got such a good response. I'm in this journey now of really sharing my story, sharing my mess, so that I can not only see it clearly, because as somebody that has this desire to speak and to share with everybody, when we share our story, it makes it more clear in our brain. It's like when a secret is told, it's no longer a secret, it's something that has value. And so here I am again sharing my second awakening, which is my divorce. And because it's an even worse story than the first one, I decided to dress up a little bit to look good, because the way that I look lately, I look destroyed. Honestly, I've been going through a really, really, really dark period in my life, and I've been meditating a lot, I've been praying a lot, but it's been really tough. And I don't know if it's like the astrology and everybody else is going through this. It's like a collective awakening, but right now it's the worst that I've been in my life in a long, long time. But this is why I'm slowly sharing the worst that happened before, so I can offload all of this pain that I actually was able to transform some, not all. And hopefully it will be of value to you all. And so here we are, my divorce. So after my father passed away, and I went for a round the world tour of Eat, Pray, Love. I was really hoping to find love at the end of the tour. When something tragic happens, you kind of hope that the gods are gonna be bringing you like a bonus at the end of the suffering. But not always is this way. I don't know. Life, at least for me, it hasn't been. I hope it has been for you guys. But for me, it has been like life has hit me on the face, and then when I was like about to recover, life hit me again, and I'm just like, boom, 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 It's been quite a journey, and I know that a lot of people look at me like I'm so happy, and there's layers to that happiness. There is a method to all this madness. So my father passed away. I went on a tour, my Eat, Pray, Love, and at the end of the tour, I really wanted to find love, but I went to Bali and I didn't find love like in the movie. It doesn't Life doesn't happen like in the movies. Shocker. And so I just found another ticket, another keep going. And one of my dreams was to live in Miami, not Miami, no, in Palm Beach at the time, in America. I mean, I would like to have lived in Miami back then, but I went to Palm Beach. And I remember I had already been a ballroom dancer for a while, and I wanted to go back and really become this ballroom dancer and live my dream, because when I was a ballroom dancer a few years before, I was so young and I was still lost and I was still like figuring out life. But after my father passed away, I had a lot more clarity of what my dreams were somehow. And when somebody dies that is so close to you and you get in contact with God. And then I also have the story of John of God, but I think I need to leave that for another time. And if you want to hear about the story of John and God, leave it in the comments and I will tell you another time. So what happened was I went back to America and I had this really vivid dream of living in America, and I was willing to do whatever needed to be done to live in America. And although I can see this now consciously, back then it was unconscious, okay? So it wasn't like, oh, I'm willing to do anything. I was just like really alive with this dream of living in America. And I remember I got a job as a personal assistant to a doctor. And eventually, I didn't think this was going to come out, but okay. This doctor and we kind of fell in love, which wasn't really. And so we got involved. So I got involved with my boss. Big mistake. And that became like an issue for me. That was like already a beginning of a little bit of an abusive relationship. And I was not willing to learn the lesson back then, because I just decided to blame him for all of the issues. I didn't want to take any responsibility. He was the asshole. I was hurt, and let's keep going with life. And then, you know what happens when you don't learn the lesson from one relationship? It gets worse in the next relationship. It gets worse, worse. So, for all of you out there that are still blaming your exes, don't do that. It's not a good idea. So, anyhow, I keep going in life. I remember after this, I was so heartbroken. I went to Ibiza and I had the best time in Ibiza. This was like 2013. And I remember having this year in Ibiza that was the summer in Ibiza that was like my bachelorette party. I was went crazy. Like I was just like having the best time of my life in Ibiza. And then I came back to America and I met again with somebody that was already courting me throughout the summer and like texting me and sending me messages. And he was to be my husband. I had met him, and I'm not gonna say a name here right now, but let's just say dancer. Dancer, because he was a ballroom dancer. Those who know me for a long time probably know his name. Those who don't know me for a long time are gonna be curious. Dancer was a ballroom dancer that I had met uh, throughout my ballroom dancing career, and he was always very interested in me, and I don't think I was that interested in him in the beginning. I was just like, man, whatever, who cares, another guy drooling at me. No, I just didn't pay much attention to him because I was involved with all the trauma and drama from all the other guys. So I only had bandwidth for one trauma drama from one guy. Hi, everybody. And so Dancer was courting me throughout the summer that I was in Ibiza being crazy. And when I came back to America, Dancer was waiting for me, open arms, like really waiting for me, open arms, ready to take me out and conquer me on a date. And I remember when I was in Ibiza, I went to the cave. I was already mystical back then, and I was writing on my journal all of my wishes, my manifestations. And I remember writing down this description of I wanted to get married. I wanted to get married like for real. And so I went to this cave with this saint in Ibiza, the Tanat, the saint of Ibiza, and I brought her a ring. Like I bought like a fake diamond ring at this place in the fair in the market in Ibiza, and I left it in this cave by this saint, and I said I want to be married next year. And so, spoiler alert, it worked. So if you guys want to be married, go to the saint in Ibiza and leave a ring there. But I don't recommend, because this manifestation, this miracle kind of exploded in my face. So Again, be careful what you manifest because you may get exactly what you wrote and you may not have a clue of what it is that you want, especially if you're in your 30s and life hasn't hit you yet. Be careful. But let's keep going. So, manifested this guy waiting for me, really eager, and we started dating and we started like getting together and getting to know each other very slowly. I wasn't trying to take anything fast, especially because I wasn't 100% interested in him. I was just curious to begin, I was like, dancer, dancer. Dancer sounds good. Dancer looks good. Dancer is being nice and kind. Dancer is proving himself. Dancer is having like all these positive points happening. But we were just like for fun, trying to see where we would go. And what happened that made things shift for me a lot was that I got bit by a spider. I got bit by a brown recluse, I think, and it was about to be, I think it was November. Yeah, November. November, I get bit by maybe end of October. I get bit by a spider, and my leg the same day was like swollen, and I felt like dizzy. I felt like I was gonna pass out. And the only person that I thought about calling to help me was Dancer. And Dancer was so in love at the time and so willing to do everything for me, like a Prince Charming, that he came to my rescue immediately. And he noticed that this was like a bit serious because I had my two butt cheeks and then I had a third butt cheek because it was right under my butt and it was like big. This thing was swollen, like I was feverish and I was starting to feel pain in my nerves. So I think the poison or the inflammation started reaching like my nerves literally. And so Dancer took me to the hospital and took care of me. And because I had to had a mini surgery, I had to go home and I couldn't really sit down or move a lot my leg. I had to kind of like lay down on my belly and I couldn't do much for a couple days. And Dancer was like the kindest man I've ever had in my life. He, with his puppy eyes, he was like, I will take care of you. I will do anything for you. I will love you. I will. And I was just like, "Ah, okay, okay. I accept. I accept. Especially me, the strong woman, independent. I would never take anybody, I would never like need help from anybody. No, not me. I was broken down by a spider. And a dancer was there at the right time and I had the idea. So if you can see here in the story, a lot of elements were coming close together, and eventually I was still in America on a visa. And after I got healed from the spider, and Dancer and I really got closer together, and we had a lot of plans for we started dreaming about the future. He was a dancer, I was a dancer. We were going to have our own dance studio. We were going to dance around the world, and we were going to do all these beautiful things. A couple in love, when you start dreaming together, oh my God, it's like huge. So we created a huge vision. Sorry, there's somebody trying to be in my video. At the end, yes, I will open up for questions. But for now, let's keep going. And so Dancer and I were having this big vision, but there was one issue. The issue was that I was going to have to leave America because I only had a tourist visa at the time. I remember when I met Dancer and I was in America, I had another visa when I was a dancer working in a dance studio. I had a real work visa, but then I didn't. I just had this tourist visa this time around. So this was a little bit of an issue, and Dancer and I came up with the idea that we would get married. We would get married, and everything was going to be amazing. We were going to have a family because we were so in love. And it sounded like a great idea at the time. And you know what? It was, because that's what happened. We got married and we wanted to keep it a secret because we wanted to the plan was that we would be married for a year and then eventually we wouldn't tell anybody this was going to be our engagement because we didn't want to get married in such a hurry, but we needed to because of you know America. And so what happened was we were going to be married for a year in secret, and then eventually we would gonna say to our families and like, hey, we've been engaged for a year. In a year, our deal was in a year we would really get married for real, like not just for the documentation. And so this sounded like a great plan, and we got married at the beach at sunrise on the first day of the year in 2014, which was very romantic. I had this beautiful dress that I had made, and I hired this photographer who was also a pastor and from a church only in America. Only in America. This church was the Love Church, or the Conscious Love, or Forever Love Church. So my marriage certificate is like Forever Love Church, something like this. And she was also a photographer. How convenient. And because this was a secret marriage, like we were eloping, we didn't invite anybody. Only us, only we know about it. And what happened? Secrets don't become secrets because the newspapers was there on the first day. We were at the beach at 6 a.m. thinking no one's gonna be there. But the newspapers were there, and they took a picture of us that showed up in the first page of the newspaper. And one day I'm gonna show you this, which our secret didn't become a secret. So this is what actually happened. And it sounds like a fairy tale because it was a fairy tale. Oh my God. This dancer was my Prince Charming, everything I've ever hoped for. He brought me croissants in the morning. He lived life with me. He saved me from a spider. He was a dancer. We were dancing and rehearsing for the best show ever at this dance studio, and it was gonna be amazing. Our life married was gonna be amazing. And the marriage, I had the beautiful dress. I woke up at 4 a.m. to get my hair done. My God, everything was just perfect. Except that when I was about to say I do, I looked at Dancer's eyes, and they were really red, really red. And I was like, did you not sleep well? I mean, okay, we didn't sleep well because we were marrying on the first day of the year. So we kind of didn't go out the night before. I mean, at least I didn't, because I wanted to sleep early. So he showed up with really red eyes. And I was still very naive at the time. I had this feeling, boom, this pang in my solar plexus. Like, I don't know what it is, but I could tell this was like a knife here. This red eyes, this was not okay. This was like, mm, shit, 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 shit. I got myself into a situation. I knew I had gotten myself into a situation. I just wasn't aware of what it was. And at the time, I was just like, ignore my intuition, ignore my angels, ignore the signs, ignore everything. I have an agenda. I'm going to marry the man of my dreams. We're going to dance around the world. What? Red eyes? Who cares if the guy shows up with red eyes to our marriage? He's my Prince Charming. He's the man of my dreams. So we're going to keep going with this. We're going to get married. I'm going to say I do, and I'm going to live happy ever after, no matter what happens. And so I did. I said I do, even against my intuition, my solar plexus telling me you're making a huge mistake. But I kept going. What happened? We went to, and this is where the story starts to get a little heavy, is we went home. It was like 8 in the morning, maybe 9. And as soon as we get home to where we were gonna live together, we weren't living together yet. We were in separate apartments, but on the day we got married, we had this romantic apartment we rented, this little house, cottage. It was beautiful, and this was the first time we were gonna move in together. Dancer was telling me he wanted to consume the marriage, right? And we had had sex before, so it's not like we were virgins, but he was insisting. And I don't remember that he had insisted like this before. And he was very insistive. And at the time, I remember I was tired because we had just been like at the beach. It was exciting. And I kind of like wanted a nap before having physical, maybe breakfast, maybe food, before having a physical interaction. Pretty much, I wasn't like 100% connected to the idea of having sex, But he kind of convinced me because he did mention that we just got married, we were husband and wife, and I was his wife, so he wanted sex, so he was supposed to get sex from me. And I fell into that, and that was the first time I really felt like something was really wrong, and I felt coerced to have sex. And I don't know if it has any happened to any of you girls, or if you have an idea of what it is to have sex against your will. It's not like you're raped, but it's like you're betraying yourself because you don't want to do something, which is anything in life. But you do it to please the other person. And spoiler alert, this is toxic. This is called codependency. And this was the beginning of a very painful journey for me. So fast forward a few months, we were married, and we, like any young couple, I didn't think much of that at the time. I just had the feeling in my solar plexus that I was doing things wrong, but I couldn't connect that feeling to a thought of like, no, this is wrong, I should not do it. When you are in a toxic relationship, in an abusive relationship, when you are in trauma mode yourself, I don't think you notice these things, and I didn't notice. So I was just like, oh, okay, sure, let's do it. Let's going along with whatever that situation was. So what happened is I got pregnant, and I got pregnant, and then about like a month, it was a very stressful situation for me to be pregnant, because when I announced that I was pregnant to my husband, which I was very happy about, he kind of like went a little off on me. I don't know if he was probably insecure, or he was just his own traumas, he was stressed, but it wasn't a happy, oh, we're pregnant situation. It was more like a fight, and that didn't really go well. On the first time I realized that I was pregnant, my first time pregnant, and my first time announcing to my husband, the love of my life, that I was pregnant, that didn't really go well. That was a fight in my life. And then there was going to be a lot more fights from there on. I don't think we had big fights before I was pregnant, but then after I was pregnant, um, things became really volatile really fast. I don't know. We were always fighting. We were always fighting, and then at some point, I think it was Valentine's Day, he wanted to give me a ring, and he did give me a ring after Valentine's Day, but he was just like making a big deal out of this ring. Like, I want to give you a ring, but I don't want to give you a ring, but I want to give you a ring. And I was just like, do your thing. If you want to give me a ring, great. If you don't want to give me a ring, what can I do? I'm not gonna force you. You do your thing. And so he didn't give me a ring. He completely disappeared on Valentine's Day, and he didn't tell me where he was going. He didn't tell me anything about him. I was texting like I thought we were gonna go for dinner. Um, he showed up drunk late at home around 10 p.m. or something like this. And he jumped on bed where I was laying worried. I don't know where he was all day long. And he started shaking me and saying and wanting sex. And I was pissed, and I didn't want to do anything. And I was just like, who do you think you are? You disappear. So we were fighting. And at this point, he was very drunk. And I remember his eyes going mad. Like, I don't know what happened to the person that I used to know, but these eyes of this person went totally like no one was there. It was just anger. And I know it wasn't this fight, it was something bigger than that, because this anger was pretty scary, and he was shaking me, and he started pretty much yelling at me, you whore, get the fuck out of my house, get the fuck out of my house, and like screaming and calling me names. And reminder, I'm pregnant, and I'm just home, and I'm just sleeping, and I'm not really understanding what's happening. But this pain that I felt on the day that I got married, now it was like this big. That day was this big. The day that he was yelling at me, it was this big. And I remember leaving the house at like 1 in the morning, because the fight was like going on, it was heating up, and he was yelling, and it was just, I don't know if anybody has ever been with a drunk person, but it's a really, it drags. The situation drags. And I took my car and I drove out of the house around 1 a.m. and I went to my aunt's house where I I slept. I mean, I don't think I slept. I don't remember much, but I know that I was in shock and I was really stressed, and I remember praying to God that I didn't want to have this child. And spoiler alert, I didn't have it. So, shit. And so, what happened was he came the next morning and apologized, and he asked me to forgive him. He didn't know who he was, what happened to him. And this was an episode that was going to happen still another like 4 or 5 times. But I had a miscarriage like a few weeks later. Yeah, it sucks. And so this relationship was sinking down really fast. And if the miscarriage didn't break us, we were just towards an abyss, because this thing that was bigger, it just became bigger and bigger and bigger. So but what can you do? You just keep going. And I think in life most of us just like keep going and hoping for the best, and this is gonna work somehow. So what do? We start going to church, and we started going to church to see if Jesus would save us or something. And we became really close to a really good church, Christ Fellowship. No, it wasn't Christ Fellowship, it was something else. But anyhow, we were going to church, we were talking to the pastor, we were getting support to see what was happening, and they were saying you need to keep being married, marriage is good. And in my mind too, it's like you need to keep being married. You married forever, for life. This is like forever. And so I'm like, fuck, I'm in this situation forever. Okay, let's keep going. By this time I was already losing a lot of weight, and I was already like very stressed. And I think it was April. We went to New York for a late honeymoon. I already had the miscarriage in like early March, and we were gonna celebrate. But again, we were staying in a hotel in New York. He started drinking, he started binge drinking, and when I noticed, and so I started telling him to stop. So then he started getting more annoyed and he started drinking more. And so at 3 a.m. in a hotel in New York, again, for the fourth or fifth time, he was yelling, calling me whore, kicking me out of the hotel room in New York. And I had to call some random girl that I knew from New York and beg for help, because I didn't have a place to sleep in New York in April. So it was pretty freaking cold for me. And so the next morning, I don't know if you can judge, but if you ever had an abusive relationship, you know how it's like you can't stay away from this person because you're in this toxic thing. It's like an addiction. So he calls me, he wants to see me, he wants to apologize. And I remember him bringing a Chanel bag to apologize to me, a brand new Chanel bag, something I always really wanted. My dream was always to have a Chanel bag. And I said no. I refused this gift, which I regret. Oh my God. This is the one thing I regret. I should have kept the Chanel bag. But I said no, because I don't want a Chanel bag out of pain, out of like, I'm sorry about because I was an asshole to you. I don't want this memory. So I said no to the Chanel bag. But I knew that from that moment on, there was really not a lot of repair to do. But we tried. We tried, because even though you don't have repair, when you think you're married and it's forever, you try your best. So when we came back to home. We kind of separated. I went to live somewhere else for a while. I said I cannot stay with you that long, but it was just temporary, because we always come together, when the fight kind of like dies down and you're in love and you want to go there. Because there was a lot of good things about this guy, a lot. Dancer was so funny. He was a Gemini, which I'm a Gemini, so imagine the craziness. It was fun and exciting, and we had a dance studio and we were dancing, and I had dresses with crystals. So part of this dream was coming true, but then so was this huge nightmare. And at the time there was no awakening. I was just like trying to be with my head above water, trying to breathe from drowning, and just being in a cycle of like drama and trauma and rah rah and fighting all the time and making love and making up and everything is beautiful, dreams are amazing, and then I hate you, you're a whore, get out of my house. And imagine what this can do to the system of a person. But then we started doing therapy, and this is where there was my first like not my first awakening on this relationship, but like my big awakening of realizing some things about me. In this therapy sessions, it was in church. We were supposed to talk about our childhood, and he had a pretty messed up childhood. Like, oh my God, if I tell you, it's like a movie. Like, he had all kinds of really bad childhood trauma. And I wrote my childhood as like, oh, it was perfect. I mean, oh my God, my parents loved me. I love my parents. Everything was fine. Everything was great. We were poor, okay, but we were like happy. No one raped me, no one I mean, there were some minor issues, like I was abandoned, and my dad lost me a few times. My mom left me and went to Portugal, and I didn't know where she was. All these issues, but there were nothing. I honestly thought my childhood had been perfect. And have you heard that the Nile is not just a river in Egypt? I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but I was drowning in the Nile, drowning in the Nile. I could not see my own shit. And I was just, again, relationship patterns, blaming him. And so when the therapist noticed that I was just blaming him and taking zero accountability, because it was very obvious that it was his fault. He was a drunk, he was alcoholic, he was like fighting me and being an idiot and yelling at me. And up until this point that I tell you the story, I'm the victim, right? Right? But this is not true, guys. What happened was that the therapist gave me a book to read at the time, and it's like, just read this book. He didn't tell me what was happening. He just noticed that the answers of my perfect childhood were a little bit interesting. Just read this book. And the book was Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. And if you think you're in a cycle of abusive relationships, read this book, Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. I know I ate this book up in 2 hours. I could not stop reading this book. And the next session we had of therapy, I came along and I was like, I know what's the problem. And the therapist was like, what is it? And this was a group therapy. I'm like, codependent. Like me, I'm this person. This is my personality. I'm like, I'm a good. And the therapist was like, oh my God, this is the first time somebody comes along and is happy to be a codependent. And I said, you have no idea how relieving this is, because I thought I was just dumb to be married to an alcoholic. I just thought I was dumb or unlucky. And now I know there's a pattern here, that it's like I'm messed up. Okay, I get it. And there's a lot more to be uncovered. And so this is also when I realized what was wrong with me. I was opened up to my denial, and I was also opened up to solutions for that. Not only seeing the problem and living that cycle of trauma and toxicity, I could see there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Because if there was a label for what I was, and somebody wrote a book about it, and it's actually a psychological term, this honestly opened up for me to go into myself more and more and understand what is codependency. Why am I codependent? Wait a moment, but what is this? Why is this connected to my psyche? What is happening here? So me and my curious mind, we had an opening through this therapy, through codependency, and I knew I had to do this journey of self-awareness, of self understanding. Just my dad dying wasn't enough to shape me into this journey. It was to give me the first few steps, but to really go deep, to really go like to uncharted territories in my history, in myself, in my psyche, I needed to go through this very, very painful toxic relationship, and realized that no, I wasn't perfect. I was a codependent, and I created this, and I manifested this dream marriage. I manifested exactly what I wanted out of a wound. out of a toxic pattern I had in myself. Because the news here is that you always attract things that are matching your vibration. So I cannot attract an alcoholic and abusive if I am not myself abusive, narcissist, or with patterns that are matching that energy, like codependency. And good news, people, if you're a codependent, your partner is a codependent. If you're a narcissist, your partner is a narcissist. And if your partner is a codependent, you are a codependent. And if your partner has all these flaws, rest assured that this is a mirror to who you are deep down. Even if you're not a narcissist to other people, which I wasn't, I was a narcissist to myself. So when you're betraying yourself, remember I told you I betrayed myself on the wedding night by having sex when I didn't really want to. When you betray yourself, you attract people that betray you. When you abuse yourself, you attract people that abuse you. Now I know that. Back then, I felt like I was in a washing machine spin cycle. So this relationship keep kept getting worse. Apparently, my husband at the time, dancer, he didn't really want to do therapy. He just didn't think it was for him. Like me, he was in denial, but I was willing to swim. He was just happy to stay where he was. And so he was in denial. He stopped going to therapy, and I kept going. I kept going. I kept going. I actually kept going to therapy for another 2, 3 years. Actually, if you really think about it, I started therapy then and I never stopped. I mean, I did different kinds of therapy, but I kept going in the journey of self awareness. And this is why I'm sharing this story here with a little more understanding. But I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. Well, I know that at the time, I didn't really want to get a divorce, even though this was a really tragic story. Not only because if I got a divorce, I would probably be kicked out of the country. Yeah, this is what happens when you marry in a situation like this. But if I got a divorce, I would be the shame of my family, because in Brazil, you marry for life. And all of the people in my family, they were married for life, for good or bad. But not really, because this is a lie. But anyhow, in Brazil, you marry for life. And if you're not married for life, you are ashamed. And I didn't want to go through that. I didn't want to be the shame. So I kept trying to resuscitate and give mouth to mouth to a marriage that was broken on day one. Day one, this was a broken situation. But I kept going. I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And I remember there was so many stories. Oh my God, so much abuse, so much stress. I'm not gonna bore you with the details. This video would take like 10 hours, so much. But I remember by November, which was like a year or no, a year and 2 months since we were together, I got shingles all over my arm, all over my arm, like shingles. Actually, it was this arm. Yeah, all over. If shingles is herpes but bigger. It's like bubbles and bubbles in my palms, bubbles and bubbles and bubbles. And shingles is something that comes from the nervous system, so it's painful. It's not just the bubbles looking like I'm a leopard person. It's painful. I couldn't barely sleep or move my arm. Everything was just like an electric shock. And I got worried, so I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "This is not normal. A person like you, your age, with shingles, you must be going through a lot of stress." And this is when I realized that I was in a fucking mess, like literally huge, and I needed to do something about it. And so I decided to go to Brazil and recover, go back to mommy's arms and see what I could do. And I was gonna be like separated from the situation to get some clarity. And funny enough, he was supposed to come a little later because we were still married. We were still trying to make it happen. We had already had these plans of spending Christmas in Brazil, but he messed up on his visa, whatever it was, so he couldn't really show up. And I thought he was not going to come. And you know what? For me, the better. I was just like relieved that he wasn't going to come. But eventually, he fixed his visa, whatever he had to fix. Sorry, my light went off. I need light. And he decided to come. Oh, no, the light is not going to come back. Oh, well, no more light. This is getting dark now. So he decided he was gonna come to Brazil and do and had a last shot at like making it happen. And we had tried so many other things. We actually even I suggested him that for him to heal because I kind of knew it wasn't against me. It was like his own anger when he was drinking. So I had some kind of compassion, but I didn't have the tools that I have now to really help the situation. So I didn't really know what to do, and I was struggling with my own codependency, which is also a lot of like toxic patterns. So we were fighting a lot. I suggested that we would do a 10-day meditation retreat, and we went to Colorado to do that. And it was great, but then it wasn't because it didn't solve anything. I don't know. So I went to Brazil and he came, and this is where the story gets really funny. He came to Brazil and he brought a ring with him, which I'm like, oh my God, is this real? And he came like with this ring and he's like, let's really give it a go. I'm really proposing to you. I'm gonna be better. We're gonna be better. We're gonna do this. And the ring was fake. The ring was fake. And the funny thing is that the ring was exactly like the ring magic that I had put in the cave in Ibiza a year before. And it was exactly the ring. And I had put a fake ring because, of course, I'm not going to leave a diamond ring in a cave in Ibiza. And he gave me a fake ring. But the way he made it sound, it was that it was real. But he was a liar. What can I do? And so, with my shingles, with the fake ring, and with my heart broken in like 5 pounds less, and with my utter sadness, and I remember at the time I was such a I became such an icky person. Was not happy. I was complaining all the time. I was bad mouthing him. I was bad mouthing life. I was so angry at everything all the time. And I couldn't remove my mess from his mess to actually heal my mess. And I was just like, I cannot, I'm exhausted. I cannot go through this one more second. And I remember saying to him, it's over. This cannot continue. And, he was like, but I love you. And I'm like, I love you too. But honestly, I don't like who I am when I'm with you. And I don't want to be this person. I want to be a happy person. I want to be a kind person. I want to love my husband and talk good things about my husband. I don't want to complain about my husband all the time because we're fighting because this is a shit show. And so it still lasted a little while to us to really like separate. I kind of made that decision and then I was in Brazil for a little bit and then when I came back to America because I was still living in America, I really had to go through a tough time of separating because I was working for him at the dance studio. So I had to let go of that dream as well of dancing. And this has been very painful to me because I love dancing and I let go of that dream and I just went into flight attending and I kind of like let dancing go because it was a moment of pain for me to separate this marriage, separated dancing. And so it was painful. It was painful. And I thought that I had a really tough time with my father's death. Uh, little did I know. Little did I know that now I had like my father's death that I really don't think I had ever felt. I just rested and intellectualized it. This pain of this broken heart, broken dreams, broken illusions. I was probably have to leave the country and I didn't have any money because I was working for my husband for free. I didn't have any savings. He kept the house, so I didn't have a house. Um, it was a shit show. And then because of that, I kind of got a job at a friend's store. She was very kind to help me at this jewelry store. And I started like just working. And I remember that I was just crying all the time. And I had never felt so useless and so like lost and so down in my life, like rock bottom to the way that I remember just crying all the time. People were calling me to pray for me because everybody realized that I was just like destroyed. And I'm so grateful to the people that prayed for me from the church, from wherever. They're just like they gave my phone number to random people, and random people would call me and pray for me, and I would just cry, 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 cry. I could barely make it to work because I was just like had nothing in me. And then there was one night, there was like 4 in the morning. I couldn't stop crying, and I was just so tired that I really wanted to end, life. And I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to call anybody. I just wanted to end my life. And I don't really know. It was like a blur, but I remember calling a helpline at 4 a.m., to get help. To get help. I was so embarrassed to talk to anybody else, but I know I needed to keep going, but I know I didn't want to. So there was this huge fight within me. But a part of me, this part of me that still is happy, that still has hope for life, that still is going forward, picked up the phone and called this helpline. And here I am alive today because of this helpline, because otherwise I was really close to doing something to end the pain. And from that moment on, I was able to, the helpline kind of like told me to ask for support from my friends. And so I started asking for support for my friends, and my friends told me, "Oh, I think you have depression." And of course, I have depression. All my life crumbled, all my dreams crumbled. Like there was nothing else to hold on to. And so I didn't have any money to go to the doctor at the time. And so I just did the thing, going on Google, how to heal depression without going to the doctor. So it was pretty much St. John's wort. And I'm not, disclaimer, I'm not recommending anything here. I'm not, this is how I did it. St. John's wort, a lot, like a lot of it, like high doses of natural homeopathy. And then dark chocolate, salmon, fish oil, lots of water, and just rest and go to the beach. And so I decided to hug myself and support myself because I wasn't doing that. I was still like with the whip, like, you have made a mistake and now you are ashamed to the country and you're ashamed to your family and you're terrible and you're a loser and you're never going to make it in life and you're terrible and you're a loser and you, no wonder you lost it all because you're worse than shit. This is exactly how my mind was. And so this is when I decided that, I needed to change things around. And I remember already having this notebook that I was slowly, when I had this really bad relationship before I got married, I was already understanding that, okay, I have some bad thoughts here. I need to like switch them around. So this is when I started doing affirmations. And I'll show you my notebook. Where was it? Where I had it here. It was a very cute notebook. Um, Coming back. Where is my notebook? I don't have it. I don't have it. I had it, but I don't have it right now. But it said, be happy. Whatever I do, I'm going to put in my stories. It said, be happy. And I remember having like these negative thoughts, and I was like rewiring them. This is 2013. I was like writing the exact opposite. So if I was thinking, oh my God, I'm so tired, I would be like, oh, I'm so energized. But this was very simple. And I kind of had stopped doing this because when you're down in the dumps, and I was in this abusive relationship, I had no energy to try to rewire my thoughts. But then after, when I was divorced and I was saved by a helpline. Thank you. Thank you for helplines. If you have any issues, please call a helpline because they help. It's a helpline. And so I remember like writing down a lot. And I have a lot of like beautiful God stories and having a Christ awakening as well that I will tell another time because we're getting late here. I'm talking. And so why am I sharing this with you? It's because I have been researching how can I be a contribution to the world? How can I give my gift to the world? And right now I'm in a very low moment in my life, very equivalent, hint, hint, to where I was when I got divorced. And it's been dark. And I know that the way out is through the light. And I know that I have learned so much in this journey of having this pain in life, having to go through everything, and actually be actively pursuing personal growth and personal development, and be actively changing my mindset to a mindset of growth even through this kind of pain, and not just trying to perpetuate my denial and perpetuate my victim and my abusive uh, behaviors, and respectively attracting abusive people into my life. So I've been doing the work. And I've been doing the work since my first awakening, since my second awakening, which was 2014, 15 actually, because I got married 2014 first day. So 2015 was, wow. If I survived 2012 with my dad, oh my God, that was not a survival. That was like a preparation for 2015, which was 10 times worse. And then, and now what I'm going through now, it's not worse, but it's something. And I actually want to read to you a poem of what I'm going through now. And eventually, the idea is to bring to you the gold from all this alchemy of what I'm going through, because there's a lot there that I've learned that I want to share and teach. And, you know, I'm just sharing so you can know that not everything is what it looks like on Instagram, and happiness is a complex subject. And so let me read to you my latest poem so you can kind of understand what's going on now. And of course, it's all connected to the past. But anyhow, I've been patiently waiting for God to heal my heart and validate me with a dream come true. So true, like the tarot card, so I could have a fresh start. There are people that have it better, there are people that have it worse, and then there's me, just me, with my head above water, yet still fully immersed in the suffering of this world. My soul aches with my mind's confusion. My veins bleed with the cut of all these shattered illusions. Why is true freedom so painful and the fake one bliss? Why we get taken by the jolly propaganda whilst marching towards an abyss? What is the price for the black sheep, just to be awake while others sleep? What about this yearning to go in this burning rabbit's hole, just to look for something that's been there all along? God, can you hear me in the echo of my walls? If you hear me, please heal me. Take me away from this paradoxical world. I'm tired of playing right and wrong. I just want to belong to the stars and be love. And with this, today I finished this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Oh, if you have any questions, this is a good time to address the questions. If you have anything, thank you everybody for being here. I'm waving at everybody for listening to my story. I hope you got something out of it, and eventually these are all going to become teachings, and I'm going to come out soon. Soon, hint, hint, with a beautiful thank you. With some beautiful teachings and learnings like that you can sign up, and I'm gonna be selling you things. I'm gonna be selling you solutions, because for me to go through all these awakenings, I bought a lot of solutions. Honestly, I spent a lot of money in therapy, in courses, in understanding my story, my feelings, and in like recovering from all of these toxic patterns. And it's work, guys. It's work. But being happy is very worth it. And I'm telling you that if I look happy to you now, is because I'm really happy, when I'm happy. But when I'm sad, I'm also really sad. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think this would serve somebody else, share it. Mwah. Wishing you a beautiful day. Thank you. Thank you for watching. See you next time if I'm still alive.